okay. Sometimes we do feel certain emotions, and we like to express them, such as "I love you." Gosh, Lindy. Now, sometimes we might find ourselves that is not reciprocated with "I love you too," or just be on the receiving end of a silence, and then when we share it, we don't have an expectation that the other person will say "I love you" back. Automatically, we don't go with that intention. But then, if the other person repeatedly says nothing or doesn't say it, and then if it's a significant person, then after a period of time, we start wondering, how come the person doesn't ever say, "Oh, I love you," or "I like you"? And we start wondering, is it me? Am I unlovable? And we might even kind of get on the road of regretting having said that. So before we, and then having this bubble, and then wondering why the person after this time, and because of the significance of this person in my life, I would expect some sort of "I love you" back. Now, before going down the road of, is it me? Am I unlovable? Or even, I'm not going to love you because it's just wasted and it's going nowhere. Why don't we just kind of look at it as in, first of all, reflecting, when do I say "I love you"? And often is when we're feeling grateful and our heart is connected with positive energy and optimism, and somehow appreciating the person in some shape or form, because we are automatically recognizing the benefit of that person for us in our life. Now, we could try to understand, why doesn't the other person say "I love you"? And we could ask, but then when you ask a direct question, which is always the best, and explore that reason, the person could give us the right answer, but it can also just make an excuse, so you never really know if that's the truth. But we can analyze it. When do we say "I love you" to other people? And often could be because we are feeling it, and sometimes could be just a habit. See someone, "Hi, I love you," "Bye, I love you," just a habit, but we're not really feeling it. And sometimes we say "I love you," but we're actually really feeling it. And if we distill that down, we can actually recognize, I love the way I feel when I am with you, when I'm interacting with you, when I'm having or doing this with you. And sometimes we don't want to say "I love you" because we don't want to be misinterpreted, because it could be seen as having romantic intentions or wanting more of something that perhaps is not appropriate. And then people can back off, and then we can feel rejected, so we can stop and not saying "I love you." But for those times where we do say and it's not reciprocated, let's just go, okay, I recognize it feels a little bit of a sting, or a bit, not a sting, a disappointment, a slight disappointment, tiny little disappointment. Oh, I thought we were sort of connecting, but we're not. On one hand, it could be an indication that we are getting more touched, or seeing things bigger and more intense than the other person is. And we can reflect on it and decide, do we want to continue with this intensity, or do we want to tone it down? Okay, sometimes it's appropriate that we keep, and sometimes it's appropriate that we just start looking at it with general eyes. rather than getting too attached. Equally, recognize that when we don't feel the love, when we are feeling low in mood, when we're feeling stressed, negative, perhaps depressed, we don't feel so much love for things or people, and we might not engage in words of, oh, I love you. If you're feeling grateful, you definitely will feel more, even if something really feels that help, feel better and more hopeful, then we might have a more automatic I love you. If you're stuck on the disappointments of the things we don't like about the other person, then we might not feel so much like saying I love you. Equally, there are instances where we don't actually grow expressing words of affection and saying I love you and or appreciate you or I'm grateful for you. It's just not part of the culture, not part of the family. Not so much the culture, actually. Within different cultures, people express themselves. It's just sometimes families, they don't grow up with that, especially older generations. You could tell your grandma, I love you, and they will never say, I love you back. But then you might question, doesn't she love me? Doesn't he love me if he's a granddad or father or mother? And then instead of automatically assuming that the person doesn't, you could say, does this person show that they cared about me? Do they show, have they demonstrated that they care and perhaps appreciate or like or welcome or accept me or love me? Okay. So that doesn't feel like one-sided. And then also reflection. Do we want to say I love you because we want to hear I love you back? Because we want the other person to show approval or demonstrate that they like us in some shape? So if we say I love you and the person says I love you back, then we feel, oh yeah, we're on the same page and it feels good. Now, ask, like I said, to clarify, but then there's still a possibility there might not be the total truth, but also consider different options. What other reasons that the person might not be saying I love you back? Perhaps the person doesn't feel it. Then we just accept it. Make peace and accept perhaps the person is not feeling in the moment. Okay? Because the mind is on something else. Perhaps the person doesn't have the habit of expressing it. Perhaps the person doesn't want to confuse us and lead to misunderstandings, like love you in a platonic way, in a familial way, in a friendship way, rather than romantic way. And perhaps it's not the way the person expresses love. Perhaps they express love in a different way, by being there, by doing things for us, or even sending praise to us, rather than saying words. Maybe the words don't have a meaning. Maybe they mean nothing because they didn't grow up with that experience of saying I love you. Perhaps the person needs to go through an experience of not having the person to recognize, oh, I missed you, and when I say I do love this. Or perhaps the person is focusing on our negatives and is disappointed with us, so it's just not feeling the love. Either way, we just need to accept where we are at, not take it too hard and make it that we are not lovable. Just because someone else doesn't say I love you back doesn't mean we're not lovable. But we think that. Why do we think we are not lovable? Someone else might reject us and can reject us, and some people will reject us as a person or our behaviors. But we can still choose to love ourselves. And then we can question, do we want to make our love conditional, meaning I only show my love if someone else loves me back, otherwise I don't? Or do I want to just share love, but don't expect anything in return? Or perhaps we can even go down the road of, if someone says I love you, and if I don't feel in a moment, I can just say thank you for your love. So we are grateful, but what about if we don't feel grateful? in the moment. Or I hear you. Sorry, I don't feel the same way. Again, it's more than a romantic way. We can even say, if it was on the other way, I'm disconnected right now, so I'm not really feeling the love, but I hear your words. So, if someone, when we say I love you and the person doesn't say I love you back, instead of automatically assuming that we are unlovable, there's something wrong with us, and why they don't love us back, why don't we just consider there could be different reasons? Maybe they don't feel the same way, and that's okay. We're not everyone's cup of tea. Not everyone is our cup of tea. And if you say I love you to our grandma and she never says I love you back, it could just be that she's not feeling it, or she didn't grow up expressing herself in that way, especially if she never said that before, ever. And you could address it and say, oh, I've noticed. Is there a reason? I've noticed that whenever I say I love you, you never say I love you back. Is there a reason? If you never said I love you or felt the words I love you, it can be very hard to grasp and comprehend. And sometimes people say I love you, but you don't really feel that towards the person. And it's very hard to say I love you back when you don't feel it, because you feel you're not being honest. But you could just simply say thank you for your love, or I love you back, or I love you too. Is it a good thing or bad thing to say I love you too when you don't feel I love you? Depends on the context. If it could be possibly misinterpreted, you could say thank you for your love for the stranger, and it could clarify what kind of love. And if imagine a friend says I love you but you don't feel that, but it's just a friend, or a family member says I love you but you don't feel that, you can simply say thank you for your love. But you can also say I love you back, I love you too. Is this lying if you don't feel the love? Well, start with thank you for your love. And then, who knows, one day you might find yourself genuinely saying I love you. And often you'll find that you will when you feel cared for by that person, or grateful for something that the other person has done that has benefited you. So there's love. Is love attached with some benefit? Well, often it is, because the benefit could be practical, some sort of a help. But it can also be in a feeling. I spend time with you, I feel better. So I love you for existing, and spending this time together, because if it wasn't for this time together, I wouldn't feel better. So I love you for that. But doesn't mean that I'm romantically involved. Okay, anyway, purpose of this conversation is don't take it too hard. Don't take it to mean that you are unlovable. Okay, because every human being is lovable. We just have different behaviors that have positives and negatives, attributes or consequences to each behavior. And that is in line with different values and different interests and priorities. And then sometimes there's a match and sometimes it's not a match to other people. Sometimes it's a preference, sometimes it's not a preference. So, all human beings are lovable and worthy of love. And if you want to go down the road of, okay, what makes me lovable? I know we can automatically know, I know why I'm unlovable. And often is because we've engaged in certain behaviours that are not as good, or we're not as proud and we don't want to, or the others don't approve. behaviours is just some things that has benefits and detriments depending on the situation. I could think, okay, I'm not lovable because get angry. Okay, so someone on the receiving end of that anger might not love me, but that anger serves a purpose, is protecting me. Obviously, it could be toxic anger or not. Or for example, someone might not love me because I'm negative and bring them down. Okay, but that negativity has a purpose and a function because it makes me be more in contact with reality and see all parts of a situation, of a person, rather than just dismissing. Just trying to protect and my safety. Now, dwelling on it and being stuck on it and is not helpful or productive. So, if I'm feeling too anxious, it might make someone uncomfortable. But it just might mean that I'm not feeling safe and I haven't found a way of feeling safe. And someone else is not liking it. It could just be that they don't quite know how to deal with the situation. So, sometimes we think we are not lovable for our negative behaviours. And sometimes we see those negative behaviours on other people. I don't like when someone else judges and criticises. And then if we really reflect, we all find ourselves that we judge and criticise. Now the function and the purpose is because we're feeling hurt and we're feeling that our needs are not being met, and perhaps we feel too vulnerable to express our needs, and if we do express them and they are rejected, this can be more painful. Or perhaps we feel frustrated that keep on asking and the person that we expect to sort of come on board keeps on dismissing, not caring. So we go down the road of judging and criticising. No, we might feel, I don't like other people when they are negative because they bring me down. But then when we are the ones on reverse that we feel negative, we don't want to be rejected for our negativity. We want to be included for the whole of ourselves. If you say, oh, I don't want to spend too long with someone that's depressed because it just brings me down. Okay, that might be true in a moment, but what about when we are depressed? Do we like being rejected? And does that make us feel unlovable? Because people might reject us. Now, what about different ways of showing I love you? Some people show I love you through being there, spending time together, checking, doing acts of service. And some people show I love you with gifts. And some people show I love you with words. And some people show I love you with touch. I love touch. From the right person. Of course. Wrong person? No. So, yes. So just because someone doesn't say I love you back, especially if it's your grandmother or your grandfather, your father, your mother, okay, or your friend or whatever that is, doesn't mean that you are unlovable. All humans are lovable, so you are lovable too. I am lovable. Even though sometimes I don't believe that, or you might not believe that. Okay, because we might be focusing on behaviours, but behaviours just brings positives and negatives as a function, a purpose. That's all. But you can look in the mirror and say, I love myself. And if you haven't tried that, I suggest you do. I love myself, even though I might not be perfect, even though I don't feel good, even though I don't look my best. I still choose to love myself. I love myself even though someone else is. I just said I love you and the person said nothing back. So, just because someone doesn't say I love you doesn't mean you're not lovable, because you are. And equally, someone else might reject you, but you can still choose not to reject you. You can still choose to love yourself. Big hug. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to rush because the battery's going down. So love, hug. I'm not going to say I love you because I don't know you and that feels kind of weird, but I do appreciate you. Okay, I do appreciate you listening. And if I do know you, or ever know you, that might be a possibility that I do love you. If I do, I tend to say it, so you would hear from me. But if you don't hear from me, it doesn't mean I don't love you. I can still appreciate you. But I appreciate you as a human being, and I appreciate you watching this content. So, you are appreciated, and you are loved by the whole universe. Do you know we love pets and birds and animals, and we don't like, oh, I only like that one, but not that one. It's only when we start looking at behaviours. Some behaviours are familiar, some behaviours are not familiar, some behaviours makes us feel more threatened or unsafe. So we might just say, oh, I don't like that person, I don't feel safe or feel uncomfortable. Either because of the person or something that reminds us from the past or made us deal with certain things that we feel uncomfortable with. Okay, so let's accept that everyone is lovable. We're not everyone's cup of tea, not everyone is our cup of tea, and people express their love in different ways. But regardless of how people express ourselves, we choose to express our love because we feel it. And let's move the expectation. This is what Brahma does, she never says I love you back. This is what Mother does, she never says I love you back. This is what Father does, he never says I love you back. Okay, so things like that. Expectations, we expect something else, but the person doesn't do it. So I didn't used to say I love you to my grandmother. No, I do. And initially, when I started saying, I didn't really feel it. Fake. Oh yeah. I didn't grow up with it. Okay. And so you might start because you want to engage in that behaviour, and then when you make progress, you're actually feeling it, and then the person that doesn't respond back, you start wondering, but then remember, at some point you were there and you were not feeling it, and then you cultivated that habit, and now you're feeling, maybe you are in a better state of mind, a better place, so you can actually feel it. So don't take it to heart. Doesn't mean you're not lovable, because you are. Okay. And if the person is not feeling it, if it's a significant other that's not feeling it, just accept. Just a season, a period. It is what it is. Or maybe if it's a romantic love, maybe it has died, and if neither, we'll accept, but we can still go into appreciation and look in a mirror and help ourselves. Even though the other person say, I love you back, I'm still going to love myself. I'm still going to choose to love myself. Might be shame that we're not on the same page. Shame is not reciprocated, because it would have been a very beautiful moment. Do you know, when you go, I love you more, I love you more, I love you more, I love you more, I love you more. And often we only associate love with romantic love, but it doesn't have to be. It could be your love towards a child, towards a friend, towards someone else's. I know when you get a stranger saying, I love you, you might feel like, you don't know me. How can you say? How do you love me? Is this platonic, or have you created a story in your head about me that doesn't exist? It's just in your thoughts. Is this a limerence thing? So we might feel a little bit pushed back, but you can ask, what is that about me that you love? So you know specifically. And equally, if they don't say I love you, but you say I love you, just say, I felt it. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's okay. I'm still going to choose to love myself. Even if I feel a little disappointed, I'm still going to choose to love myself. Even if I say to the dog, I love you, and he doesn't say I love you back, I'm still going to choose to love myself. It's about them, not about me. Okay? If contributed in some way in a certain behaviour, the person not feeling the love, then I would hope that the person would address it with me so we could clarify, make amends if needed, or see what was possible, what expectation is possible or not. But that is about the other person, not me. And I could reflect if I'd done anything, I could reflect on that. But when it comes to love, you either feel it or you don't. Okay. I'm feeling it. Or you're not feeling it. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. Okay, the best ones is when we're feeling. The automatic ones, I love you, but not really feeling, it's just an automatic habit. It's a good habit. And we have the habit of saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. So it could be an automatic habit of saying I love you, as in remember. Or I'm choosing to remember. Bye.